In the elegant foyer of a luxurious hotel completely reserved for a grand wedding, excited energy hummed through every corner. Sophia, wearing a flowing silk dress that gently caressed her figure, trembled with joyful anticipation. The magic of the moment ahead and the promise of a long, blissful life together made her head spin with happiness. She wandered through the beautifully decorated hall, where tomorrow her wealthy family and 100 of the city's most respected guests would gather. Her younger sister was double-checking the seating chart one final time. Their mother was animatedly discussing details with the decorator, while her father strolled around with a satisfied smile before stepping out onto the veranda. Sophia inhaled the sweet scent of flowers, the kind her beloved adored, and closed her eyes, savoring the anticipation of tomorrow's celebration. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like so you don't miss new stories. She found her closest friend and asked, a playful pout on her lips. Do you think we should swap the white roses for soft pink ones? The white ones feel a bit too plain to me. Her friend laughed warmly and pulled her into a hug. Sophia, everything looks stunning. You've spent a fortune on these arrangements. It's all perfect already. Go find your handsome groom instead. Sophia nodded gratefully. Her heart sang with pure joy. She had never felt happier in her entire life. She longed to ask Damien if he felt the same overwhelming happiness. As she walked down the quiet corridor, she daydreamed about their enchanted future together. Approaching the guest lounge, she heard low voices and froze. They were muffled but clear enough to understand. Her fiancé, the man she loved, was speaking with obvious excitement to someone. You won't believe it, he boasted with undisguised glee. I managed to set aside $12 million in just 4 months. I never imagined it would be this easy. An older voice replied. It belonged to Damien's father. Son, I worry you're moving too fast. What if her father grows suspicious? Aren't the sums disappearing from their accounts rather quickly? Relax, Dad. Everything is under control, Damien answered confidently. I told her father the money was needed to launch a new venture, and that it would return tenfold. Her parents trust me completely. They don't notice a thing. All I have to do is tell Sophia, Darling, this is for our future, and her eyes light up with joy. Sophia felt a sharp sting in her chest. It couldn't be true. Her beloved couldn't possibly be speaking about her and her family with such cold calculation. She must have misunderstood. Surely he was talking about something else. Her imagination was simply running wild. After all, she loved him so deeply and trusted him without reservation. She stepped back silently and retreated down the hallway. Her legs carried her to the balcony. Fingers shaking, she dialed the family's financial advisor. Mr. Harrington, she whispered into the phone, struggling to keep her voice steady. I need to check something urgently. Where has Damien been spending money these past months? What amounts has he withdrawn? Sophia leaned against the cool wall and waited. Soon, Mr. Harrington's calm voice came through. Sophia, I've reviewed everything. He has been moving funds in smaller portions, always with your father's approvals, but consistently. The total has now reached $12 million. Her knees nearly gave way. Yes, he had permission for certain business-related sums. But why had he bragged to his own father about accumulating that money instead of investing it in their shared future as he had promised? Sophia tried to push away the creeping suspicion, but it clung to her like stubborn shadows. The best thing would be to ask Damien directly. She headed back toward the room where she had overheard the conversation. The room was empty. She went downstairs and found her younger sister finishing the guest list while speaking with the head chef. Have you seen Damien? Sophia asked, trying to sound casual. He's in the garden with his mother, her sister replied. They went to that lovely gazebo. It's already decorated. You should go see how beautiful it turned out. Sophia nodded and hurried outside. She walked briskly along the alley lined with blooming rose bushes. Before reaching the end, she spotted them. Damien and his mother sat inside the gazebo with drinks on the table before them. Not wanting to be seen, Sophia stopped behind tall, flowering shrubs and listened. Darling, is everything all right between you two? His mother asked quietly. She called me earlier. She sounded upset. You told her not to phone you. It's only temporary, Mom. I can't live without her, Damien answered softly. But we need to be patient a little longer. I'm constantly in the spotlight right now, so I asked her not to call. Damien, be careful, his mother said anxiously. And please be gentle with Natalia. Don't hurt her. She is carrying your child after all. Sophia stopped breathing. "Mom, everything is going according to plan," Damien assured her. "Once I have the amount I need, I'll divorce that dull fish and marry Natalia. We'll all swim in money. We'll live like royalty, and that arrogant family will be left with nothing." Sophia felt herself falling into an abyss. Tears burned her eyes. She couldn't comprehend what she had just heard. One thought pounded in her mind: this cannot be real. She had been so happy these past months, living as if in a beautiful dream. Damien had seemed so charming, so attentive and gallant. She didn't remember returning to her luxurious suite, sitting on the sofa, or how much time passed while she remained motionless. She came back to herself only when evening lights began to glow outside the windows. Twilight had settled, and in the darkened room, the only bright spot was her wedding dress. It hung on a mannequin against the wall, snow white, adorned with delicate lace and a long train sparkling with pearls. Tomorrow, this dress was supposed to symbolize her happiness. Now it looked like a shroud. A glittering illusion she had believed in with all her heart. Tears streamed down her cheeks again. She remembered how Damien had embraced her, how tenderly he had whispered words of eternal love. He had called her his destiny, his one and only, while secretly involved with another woman who was expecting his child. Her body shook with revulsion. How could she have been so blind, so naively trusting? Sophia stood up, approached the dress, and ran her hand over the soft silk. She wanted to tear it to shreds, trample it, burn it, destroy everything that connected her to this man. Her anger was so intense that she felt blood pounding in her temples and her breathing grow ragged. Then something inside her clicked. She lowered her hand and stepped back. Her gaze remained fixed on the mannequin. In that moment, she realized, no, she would not be the victim. He was the pathetic swindler who thought he could use her and her family for money and mock her dignity. She recalled her father's words, a seasoned magnate who had once told her with a sly smile, "For every clever carp, there is a cleverer pike." No, she would not throw a tantrum or destroy the dress. That would be childish. She was no longer a little girl. She was a woman, and she would make sure he regretted ever humiliating her. He thought he was marrying a dull fish. Well, let him think that. She would be the pike that swallowed him whole. Sophia walked to the window. Darkness had fully claimed the sky. The city sparkled with thousands of lights. Gazing at that beauty, she felt calm and confident. Her plan for revenge was simple, yet brilliant, and she had every resource needed to carry it out. He had chosen his own fate. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, bathing the room in golden light, yet it could not warm the icy resolve that had settled in Sophia's heart. She watched as Damien prepared for his important meeting, his face glowing with barely contained excitement. He was certain that in just a few hours, he would become a vastly richer man. "Good luck with your deal, my love," Sophia purred softly, stepping close to adjust his tie with gentle fingers. "I'm so proud of you. You're my man, and you know best how to handle these matters. I trust you completely with our future." Damien smiled, kissed her cheek, and left the suite with confident strides. The moment the door closed behind him, Sophia moved with purpose. She took the private elevator to the top floor of the hotel, the exclusive level reserved for her family. Behind an inconspicuous door lay the security control room. The head of security, a solid man in a crisp uniform, was already waiting. He gave a respectful nod. "Everything is prepared, Miss Sophia." He led her to the wall of monitors. One screen showed a split view of the private business lounge downstairs. Sophia's eyes locked onto the image. There sat Damien and Mr. Harrington's trusted associate, Mr. Langford, at a large, polished table. Papers were spread before them. Damien tried to hide his impatience, shifting slightly in his chair. Mr. Langford remained perfectly composed and serious. He slid a thick folder across the table. Damien took it eagerly, scanned the first pages, pulled out a pen, and signed every document with quick, decisive strokes. Sophia watched without blinking as her husband then opened his laptop, logged into the banking application, and entered the transfer details with obvious satisfaction. He closed the device, shook hands with Mr. Langford, and left the meeting room wearing a triumphant grin. The head of security pointed to another camera feed. "He's not heading back to the bridal suite. He's going the other way." Sophia allowed herself a cold, thin smile. Let him go. She gave the order, and surveillance on Damien began immediately. Meanwhile, she returned to the guests and relatives who had gathered for a late breakfast. Music played again. The second day of celebrations was beginning. When people asked where her husband was, Sophia only laughed lightly. He ate too much fruit yesterday, sensitive stomach. He's resting and will join us later. By lunchtime, her phone vibrated. It was the head of security. We have located the target. Police are coordinated and ready. Would you like to be present for the arrest? Yes, Sophia answered shortly. Her car pulled up to a modest house in a neighboring district. The security chief and the family financial advisor, Mr. Harrington, accompanied her. They climbed the stairs to the right apartment. Police officers were already waiting outside the door. An officer rang the bell. The door opened. A pale, trembling young woman stood there, eyes wide with fear. Is Damien here? The officer asked firmly. Yes, she whispered. Natalia, who is it? Damien's voice called from deeper inside the apartment. It's for you, the young woman breathed in horror and began to cry. The officers gently moved her aside and entered. Sophia, Mr. Harrington, and the security chief followed. Damien sat in the living room in a casual robe and slippers, counting stacks of cash spread across the table. When he looked up and saw the group, confusion froze his features. Then his gaze landed on Sophia, and his mouth fell open. Sophia, what are you doing here? He stammered. How did you find me? Did you really think I would simply let you disappear? Sophia asked calmly, her face perfectly composed. You are under suspicion of large-scale fraud, the officer stated, presenting the search warrant. Damien's face twisted. Fraud? That's ridiculous. I'm a legitimate businessman. I have all the necessary approvals. The transfer was part of a legitimate deal. It's my partner commission. Is that correct, Damien? Mr. Harrington asked quietly. Our banking records clearly show the funds moved from my client's family account directly to your personal offshore account, not to any project partner. A flicker of doubt crossed Damien's face, but he quickly recovered. It was just a precaution. I wanted the money under my direct control, that's all. Officers brought in witnesses and began the search. They pulled large sums of cash from drawers and cabinets. Damien watched, frowning. That money is for living expenses, he muttered. One officer discovered printed flight tickets and handed them to the lead detective, who showed them to Sophia. Tickets to the Caribbean for you and Natalia, purchased with my family's money instead of our honeymoon, Sophia said with a cold smile. You didn't manage to run away from this silly rich girl after all. She saw shock on Damien's face turn into pure terror. Another officer found photographs, images of Damien, his parents, and Natalia, smiling happily together like one big family. So tell me, darling, Sophia continued, her voice steady, are these just old pictures that mean nothing? You will face charges for fraud on a particularly large scale, Mr. Harrington added. Your parents will likely follow as accomplices, and your child will grow up knowing their father is a convicted swindler who failed at everything. 10 years in prison with full asset confiscation. Damien stared at them, his face deathly pale. Horror filled his eyes. He dropped to his knees, trying to speak, but only a choked wheeze escaped his throat. The officers handcuffed him and led the fraudster away. Sophia turned to the pregnant young woman who stood trembling, hands covering her face. Thank you for opening my eyes to this deceiver, Sophia said evenly. I hold nothing against you. Whether you wait for him or move on is your choice. But remember, a man who betrays one person will eventually betray another. Sophia turned and left the apartment. She breathed deeply, as if shedding heavy chains that had bound her for months. She felt transformed, no longer the naive, light-hearted girl she once was. After Damien's arrest and the search of his mistress's home, events moved rapidly. The evidence collected was overwhelming. His financial schemes became clear, and the attempted escape with stolen money and his pregnant lover only made his situation worse. A swift divorce followed, clean and final, leaving no lingering obligations. Damien received his prison sentence. Investigators gained access to his correspondence with his parents, which confirmed their involvement. Though elderly and without prior convictions, they received suspended sentences. Still, the scandal destroyed their reputation forever. They would carry the stain of criminality for the rest of their lives. Natalia did not wait for Damian. She eventually married someone else, needing stability to raise her child. As for Sofia, this painful chapter became the beginning of a stronger new life. She recovered every stolen penny, but far more important, she had grown wiser. Her father began inviting her to serious discussions about expanding the family business. "I see you've become wiser and stronger, daughter," he said one evening, pride evident in his voice. "You handled that scoundrel all on your own. Your mother and I are finally at peace about your future." Sofia smiled softly. There was no more room in her life for betrayal or pain. She had learned to value herself and her inner peace, the greatest treasure she had gained from this ordeal. In the weeks that followed, Sofia moved through her days with a quiet strength she had never known before. The luxurious hotel that once buzzed with wedding excitement now felt like a distant memory, a stage where her old life had ended and a new one had quietly begun. She spent long hours in her family's private study, reviewing documents and speaking with lawyers. Every piece of evidence against Damian was carefully examined. The financial trails he had tried to hide were laid bare under expert scrutiny. Sofia discovered additional transfers she hadn't known about, smaller amounts that had been siphoned over many months, each one disguised as legitimate business expenses. Her father sat beside her during these meetings, watching his daughter with a mixture of pride and quiet sorrow. "You handled this with more composure than I ever expected," he told her one afternoon, his voice warm yet serious. "Most people would have crumbled. You turned pain into power." Sofia offered a small smile, though inside she still felt the echoes of betrayal. The memories of Damian's tender words and passionate kisses now tasted like poison. She remembered how he had looked at her during their wedding ceremony, his eyes shining with what she once believed was love. Now she understood it had only been greed masked by charm. That realization no longer brought tears, only a cold determination to ensure justice. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, thanks to ironclad prenuptial agreements prepared by her family's legal team long before the wedding. Sofia emerged with everything intact. Not a single asset was lost. Damian's attempt to claim any share of the family fortune was dismissed immediately. In court, he appeared pale and broken, his once confident posture reduced to slumped shoulders and downcast eyes. When the judge read the final ruling, Damian's gaze briefly met Sofia's across the room. For a moment, she saw a flicker of regret, perhaps even fear, but it was too late for apologies or second chances. "I never meant for it to go this far," he had whispered to her during one of the final hearings when no one else could hear. "I truly cared for you, Sofia." She had looked at him steadily, her voice calm and clear. "Caring would have meant honesty. What you felt was never love. It was calculation." He had no answer. Meanwhile, the investigation into Damian's parents deepened. Their intercepted messages and recorded conversations revealed they had known about the scheme from the beginning. They had encouraged their son, helped him cover tracks, and even suggested ways to keep Sofia distracted with wedding preparations. Though the court showed some leniency due to their age, the public disgrace was complete. Old friends stopped calling. Invitations to social events dried up. They retreated into isolation, their once comfortable lives shattered by the consequences of their greed. Sofia felt no joy in their suffering, only a quiet satisfaction that the web of lies had finally unraveled. She had chosen not to pursue maximum punishment against them personally, but the law took its course. Their conditional sentences meant they avoided prison, but carried the permanent mark of accomplices in fraud. As for Natalia, the young woman carrying Damian's child, life took an unexpected turn. Sofia heard through mutual contacts that she had moved to a quieter neighborhood. The shock of the arrest and the reality of raising a child alone had forced her to make hard choices. Several months later, news reached Sofia that Natalia had married a kind-hearted engineer who accepted the child as his own. She had chosen stability over waiting for a man who had promised her the world, but delivered only disappointment. Sofia wished her no ill will. In a strange way, both women had been victims of the same deception. Sofia herself began to change in visible ways. She cut her hair into a sleek, modern style that reflected her sharper outlook on life. She started attending business seminars alongside her father, asking insightful questions and offering fresh ideas that surprised even seasoned executives. The naive girl who had once planned flower arrangements with dreamy excitement had transformed into a woman who understood the value of caution, intelligence, and self-respect. One evening, as golden sunset light filled the family library, her mother approached and gently touched her shoulder. "My dear, you've grown so much. There's a new light in your eyes, stronger, wiser." Sophia leaned into her mother's embrace for a moment. "I lost my illusions, Mom, but I found myself. That feels like a fair trade." Her father joined them, carrying a folder of new projects. "We're expanding into international markets," he announced. "I want you to lead one of the divisions. You've proven you can handle pressure and see through people. This family needs your vision now." For the first time in months, Sophia felt genuine excitement. Not the fragile, love-struck kind she once knew, but a deep, grounded confidence in her own abilities. She accepted the responsibility with quiet grace. Evenings were no longer spent replaying painful memories. Instead, she read books on finance and psychology, took long walks in the garden where she had once overheard Damien's betrayal, and slowly rebuilt her inner world. The rose bushes still bloomed beautifully, but now they reminded her of resilience rather than lost romance. She even began meeting old friends again, though she was more selective about whom she trusted. Conversations flowed differently now, deeper, more meaningful, free from the need to impress or pretend. There were still quiet moments when the pain resurfaced. Late at night, she sometimes remembered the way Damien had smiled at her on their wedding day, the weight of his ring on her finger, the promises whispered under the wedding arch. Those memories no longer broke her. They served as reminders of how far she had come and how carefully she would guard her heart in the future. One crisp autumn morning, Sophia stood on the same balcony where she had made her first desperate call to the financial advisor. The city spread out before her, alive with possibility. She breathed in the cool air and felt a profound sense of freedom. The man who had tried to destroy her happiness had instead forged her into someone unbreakable. She was no longer waiting for a prince. She had become the architect of her own destiny. Months turned into seasons, and Sophia's transformation continued to unfold like a carefully tended garden after a harsh winter. The pain that once felt like an open wound had healed into a faint scar, a reminder rather than a constant ache. She threw herself into the family business with renewed energy, attending board meetings, analyzing market trends, and proposing strategies that impressed even the most skeptical executives. Her father watched her growth with visible pride, often introducing her to important partners as his most trusted advisor. One clear spring morning, Sophia stood in the same luxurious hotel where her wedding had taken place. The venue had been rebooked for a major business conference hosted by her family's corporation. As she walked through the familiar halls, memories surfaced, but they no longer held power over her. The grand ballroom, once filled with flowers and guests celebrating false love, now echoed with professional conversations and the quiet confidence of success. She smiled softly to herself. Life had come full circle, yet she was no longer the same woman who had trembled with naive excitement here. In the afternoon session, Sophia delivered a presentation on ethical investment practices and fraud prevention. Her voice was steady, her arguments sharp and well-researched. When she finished, the audience applauded warmly. Several respected businessmen approached her afterward, seeking advice and potential collaborations. Among them was a tall, intelligent entrepreneur named Alexander, whose calm demeanor and honest reputation stood in stark contrast to the man she had once married. "Your insights were remarkable," he said after the session, extending his hand. "You speak from experience, don't you?" Sophia met his gaze evenly. "Experience is the best teacher," she replied, "especially the painful kind." They spoke for a while about business and life lessons learned the hard way. There was no rush, no overwhelming emotion, only pleasant, genuine conversation. For the first time in a long while, Sophia allowed herself to feel the possibility of new connections without fear. She had learned to guard her heart wisely. Evenings at home became a time of quiet reflection. Sophia often sat with her mother on the terrace, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. They spoke of many things: forgiveness, strength, and the importance of self-worth. I was so blind back then, Sophia admitted one night. I wanted the fairy tale so badly that I ignored every small warning sign. Her mother took her hand gently. Many women have walked that path, my dear. What matters is that you found your way out and became stronger for it. Not everyone does. Her father joined them, carrying a glass of fine wine. You know, he said, settling into a chair, I once told you that for every clever carp there waits a cleverer pike. You proved to be that pike, Sophia. And more. You didn't just survive, you thrived. Sophia spread through her chest. The betrayal that had nearly broken her had instead revealed her true capabilities. She had recovered every stolen penny, strengthened family bonds, and discovered an inner resilience she never knew she possessed. The naive girl dreaming of perfect romance had become a confident woman building her own empire. News from Damien's side reached her occasionally through legal channels. He was serving his sentence, his once charming personality eroded by the reality of prison life. His parents lived quietly in a small apartment, their social circle gone, forever marked by the scandal. Natalia had moved forward with her new husband and child, creating a stable home far from the shadows of the past. Sophia felt neither hatred nor pity, only detachment. That chapter was closed. As summer approached, Sophia took her first real vacation in years. She traveled to a serene coastal town, staying in a beautiful villa overlooking the sea. There, away from the demands of business, she allowed herself to simply breathe. She walked along sandy beaches at sunrise, read books that inspired her, and journaled her thoughts. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant oranges and pinks, she realized how far she had come. She no longer needed validation from others to feel complete. She valued her own judgment, her strength, and her peace of mind above all else. The experience had taught her that true love, if it ever came again, must be built on honesty, respect, and equality. Until then, she was content with her own company and the bright future she was creating. Upon returning home, Sophia threw herself into a new project, establishing a foundation to help women who had faced financial manipulation and emotional betrayal. She wanted to turn her pain into purpose, offering resources, legal guidance, and support networks. The initiative gained quick momentum, attracting attention from influential circles. At the launch event, surrounded by grateful attendees and supportive family, Sophia felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Standing at the podium, she addressed the crowd with quiet confidence. We all make mistakes in trusting the wrong people, she said. But those mistakes do not define us. What defines us is how we rise afterward. Today, we stand together stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. The applause that followed warmed her heart. Later that night, as she looked out over the city from her family home, Sophia reflected on the journey. The luxurious wedding that had begun with flowers and dreams had ended in betrayal. But from those ashes rose a phoenix, a woman who knew her worth and refused to settle for anything less. She had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her power. The man who tried to use her had inadvertently set her free, and as the stars sparkled above, Sophia a quiet thank you to the universe, not for the pain, but for the strength it had forged within her. Her story was no longer one of deception and heartbreak. It had become a tale of resilience, growth, and ultimate triumph. If this story touched you, leave a like. Which moment moved you the most? Write in the comments. Thank you for watching until the end. Subscribe so you don't miss more powerful stories. See you soon.